Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tag Podcast. I actually had to film a new intro because after this interview and when we stopped recording, I found out that my guest today, Daniel Trevor, is actually 77 years old. So I hope you guys are watching this on video because you are going to be blown away by how good this guy looks. He does not look 77. I thought he was in his 50s. So I need to know his secret and I will definitely have him back. But anyway, just to give you a quick brief, Daniel Trevor is the author of The Unholy Trinity: How Carbs, Sugar, and Oils Make Us Fat, Sick, and Addicted, and How to Escape Their Grip. So we talked about his heart attack that almost killed him and how that changed his life completely, and why seed oils are super dangerous, why cholesterol is not bad for you and not going to kill you, why medical testing is so important, why you need to control your blood sugar in order to avoid diabetes, how many amputations they're doing every day in America. We covered some amazing topics, guys. This is an episode that you want to listen to until the very end. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here with us.
Lynn Hardy.
Lynn Hardy.
Yes,
So
I'm
let's
so
start.
impressed. I mean, watched one of your videos, by the way, and you said you
Uh-huh.
had recently got a degree in quantum biology. And I'm thinking,
Yes.
what is that? I mean,
Yes.
I know biology, but I had to Google it and it was like, wow, this is really deep into it.
Yes.
Photosynthesis, reactive oxygen species, all these things that are
Exactly.
more esoteric. And I thought, wow, this is a brave girl.
Yeah, it's a whole new field out there, and so many people are jumping on board. So many doctors and scientists, and we've got an amazing community. And it's really just about going back to the basics, about nature, about sun, living as one with nature, blocking out the blue light. It's those simple things that really make a big difference. Because what I found along the way as a nutritional consultant, as a naturopath, for me, it was always about diet, exercise, supplements. That's it. Then you're done. And then you realize when you learn about quantum biology that all of those things are not enough until you have the basics covered. So, this is what quantum biology has taught me, and it has changed my view on everything.
That's wonderful. I'm
But we're
right
not
there
here
with
to
you.
talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So, I'm going to
Oh my
ask you to
God.
tell us about your story because you have an incredible story. So, please tell us what happened to you.
Well, sure. I A few years back I had a heart attack and I almost died.
Wow.
And it was a complete and total shocker to me because I thought I was Mr. Healthy, I watched what I ate. I mean, to a certain degree. And then having studied technical data all my life, I decided to dive into the science to find out how could this happen to me? And what I discovered really shocked and infuriated me because what we've been told to eat for 70 years is killing us. It's all wrong. It's just and so from that, I wrote a book about my discoveries, and I thought I have to share this with my fellow brother and sister human beings because we've been lied to for a long time, and there's so much corruption, and that's what happened to me because I was buying into all the BS. I think Europeans know what BS means, right?
We do know, yes, absolutely, absolutely. But it's mostly Americans that are watching this podcast.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah. So I wrote the book, and it's now an international bestseller. It was just wild in what I discovered, and then because of the success of the book, I was invited on this guy, Dr. Eric Berg. He
Mhm.
called me and
Wow.
invited me on the Maha social media working group. And I'm like, wow, yeah. And we just had a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there was, Tony Robbins and Gary Fetka and all these superstars. I was starstruck, right? So
Wow. What are you
we're
doing on my
trying to,
podcast?
yeah.
You're in with the big guys.
Hey, listen, I'm starstruck with them too. So,
Wow.
but anyway, I wrote the book and I really didn't know that I had anything valuable until I started reaching out to people for endorsements. And what happened was after my heart attack, I decided to get a lot of testing done because
Mhm.
you have to find out what's going on inside you. Because if you're over 30 or 40 and you're overweight, or both, and you're not testing, you are driving down the road with no steering wheel, no speedometer, no brakes, and no airbag. you have any engineer will tell you you can't manage what you don't measure.
Mhm.
You have to measure. And so I found this guy. See, what happened was also after that, I went into Google University and YouTube University and all these books and studies that I immersed myself in. And I came across this guy. His videos at the time were very complicated. His name was Dr. Ford Brewer. He's taught thousands of doctors at Johns Hopkins over the years,
Mhm.
right? And he is brilliant at all the testing. And so I've watched one of his videos, and I had to do a lot of word clearing, if you know what I mean,
Mhm.
because I was new to all this, and but I'm able to conquer terminology and nomenclature because that's the biggest barrier when you're studying anything new, the nomenclature and the terminology. So anyway, I reached out to him and I said, listen, I'm writing this book. Would you write a chapter in my book that delineates what are the most important blood labs and scans that anyone can get online if their doctor won't order them
Yeah.
without even needing a prescription? That way, the person themselves can find out if they've got something lurking, ready to pounce, or they're just fine, or somewhere in between that needs attention. Because too many times these days, you'll say, "Hey, I was watching Lynn Hardy, and I heard this guy talk about this one test, and I'd like to get this one and this other one over here." Your doctor might say, "Oh, you don't need that. You don't need that. You're fine." And the only reason they're saying that is because they don't know what it is. They wouldn't know how to analyze the results anyway. And the last thing doctors want to get from their patients is homework. They don't
Yeah.
want homework.
No.
You're in and out in 6 minutes. They're off to their next client, customer, patient. They got all this computer work to do. I mean, I feel for them because my older daughter Chloe is in that field and she works in the ER, and there's a
Wow.
lot to do.
Yeah.
And so a lot of doctors can't be the healer that they set out to be because they're in a system that demands this and that. I was talking about this with Dr. Sean Baker. I don't know if you know
No,
him.
of course. I
He
organized the first ever carnivore retreat in Spain 6 years ago.
Oh, no
Yeah,
kidding. Oh,
yeah.
wow. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very big
yeah.
in the carnivore community.
Well,
Yeah.
you know his story then.
Yes.
He was like me. He first found keto and he was getting these great gains, and
Yes.
then he started turning his patients onto it, and they were having great gains too. But the higher ups didn't like that. And he got
Mhm.
into a lot of trouble. He was suspended for a year. So, I mean, it was this terrible
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
They just, it's just crazy the amount of corruption. It just goes in the direction of drugs and procedures and drugs and procedures and more drugs and more procedures. And if it's not that, then you're out of here, pal.
Exactly. You are the product. It's all about making money. Big pharma is all about making money. Absolutely.
Oh my God. And then it makes you wonder, hey, the medical schools are funded by big pharma.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So maybe they want them reaching for the prescription pad instead of
Exactly.
talking to the patient about are they eating right? They don't know anything about that anyway because they
No,
get
they
like
don't
what
learn about nutrition. It's not
they don't
part of the.
nothing. They're
Yeah.
it's really funny. I was helping a friend find a GI doctor, a gastrointestinal
Mhm.
doctor. And because I didn't know anything about that air. So I started helping her. And then I realized that trying to find a GI doctor that knows about the microbiome is kind of like looking for a cardiologist that knows about insulin resistance. It's impossible. You can't find them. And insulin resistance is the source root cause of what cardiologists are, treating every day. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't have heart disease without having some degree of diabetic physiology. The science is crystal clear on that.
Yes.
And I was talking about with Dr. Ovadia on his show with about that because
Yeah.
Dr. Ovadia, right?
Yes.
Cardiac surgeons done over what 3,200 heart surgeries and also carnivore and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got a long way to go, but I'm on the same page with you as insofar as how did we eat over the millions of years these bodies have been around? How do we evolve? And when you hear this low fat BS coming from the American Heart Association, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy.
It's
People
crazy.
with high cholesterol live the longest.
That's
And
right.
people with low cholesterol die much earlier and usually of some form of cancer. I mean, it's just
It's
wild.
crazy. And
It's
also,
backwards.
cholesterol is so important for the brain, for everything. I mean, hormones are made in cholesterol. And then they put you on statins and then you get dementia. Alzheimer's, and
It's
people just,
wild. That's, I have all chapter 18 is all on statins, and it's just so the corruption there is just so amazing. I was just telling a guy at the gym yesterday about the statins because he was complaining about he feels like he's lost IQ points. I said, look, you're guaranteed to lose
yeah,
IQ points. You start taking
absolutely.
statins. That's why they call it statin stupid. It's just, and because the brain needs lots of cholesterol for
Exactly.
proper neurological function. And it's just wild. But again, the statins have been one of the biggest cash cows big pharma has ever had.
Absolutely. And when you
So,
realize that cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease, which they are proving over and over again, but people just don't want to listen.
well, also there was in that chapter I covered this one study. They did this. There was a big study. It involved 92,135 patients,
Hmm.
and they wanted to know because patients want to know if I take a statin every day for the rest of my life, how much longer will I live? And so the researchers set out to find that out. Hey, how much are they? So they're looking at, all of these different, it was a meta analysis, which I know you know what that is. And they found those in the group taking statins for primary prevention, in other words, no heart attack yet, but
Hmm.
they were taking to prevent, they lived a big 3 days longer than the people in the group not taking a
Wow, whole
statin.
three
And
days?
those 3 days, and those in the group taking statins for secondary prevention, in other words, they already had a heart attack, they lived a big 4 days longer. So it's like,
Wow. But with full on
why?
dementia, so
I'm
is it
telling you,
worth it?
I'm telling you, it's really amazing. So I asked the reader in the book, I say, you still want to put up with all the nasty side effects because
Mhm.
they can get pretty nasty, like road rage and,
Yeah.
family fear because you get ticked off so easily. And plus all of the IQ points you lose. And there's a lot of bad side effects. So anyway, like that. But yeah, so I'm really happy that things are going to start changing because we have these amazing people in the Maha group. It's being led by RFK Jr.,
Hmm.
Robert
Yes.
F. Kennedy Jr. And below him, he has this the FDA administrator. That means Food and Drug Administration is Dr. Marty McCary. And I had some quotes here. This was just a couple of weeks ago, and I was so happy to hear this and see this. And I'll read it
Okay.
for you and your audience. It says, we are rewriting the food pyramid, which was a broken piece of health misinformation that did a lot of damage to American health. Hey, the food pyramid was what caused my heart attack. And then he
Exactly.
goes on, and then he goes on to say, no longer are we going to have a corrupt food pyramid and U.S. dietary guidelines. And we are going to end the 70-year demonization of and war on natural saturated fat. Saturated fat is not, in other words, red meat, is not the devil the entire healthcare system has pointed to. Hallelujah.
My
So this
God.
is what we're going for. We're going
No,
to have a new food
that's
pyramid. I can't give you too much details right now because it's confidential.
yeah.
Um, so there's going to be new food pyramids and new US dietary guidelines. So things are changing.
Well, they can start by flipping the old one upside down, right? Put
Flipping what?
put to flip the old one
Yes.
upside down to put the meat and the
Yes.
saturated fat at the bottom and then build your
Exactly.
way up. But I mean, really, that's all you need. A little bit
Yes,
of vegetables,
exactly.
but I mean, so many people are thriving without the vegetables, so it's not definitely not necessary. Even fiber is a big scam. And
Oh my God.
yeah. Have you ever read The Fiber Menace? The book The Fiber Menace?
I haven't, but I have a whole chapter. My chapter 11 is called Perilous Plants.
Uh-huh. Oh,
And I go
interesting.
into the fiber scene and
Yeah.
the whole lectins and oxalates and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah, because
But
that's really important as
um,
well. People overlook that stuff. I mean, if you everyone if you're thinking healthy, if you go to any retreat or anywhere where like you're trying to get healthy, it's always vegetables, fruit, vegetable juice, fruit juice, and it's like this is the only thing that they equate with health, which is insane.
it's just so crazy. I think of the book as three things.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it's a how-to book on how I discovered and reversed four comorbidities, which I'll tell you about.
Okay.
And then it's also an expose on big food, big pharma, and big medicine. And then finally, I think of it as a data evaluation and analysis of this. In 1930, the obesity rate in the U.S. was 1%.
Mm-hmm.
We are now approaching 50% in under a mere 100 years. Never in human history has a population gotten so fat and so sick so quickly. You got to say, what the hell's happening or what happened? And when you pull the strings and you do the analysis, the data analysis, you find that it's the introduction in the 20th century of what I call the unholy trinity, the carbs, the sugar, and the oils in the amounts and concentrations never before seen. It's just, I mean, we've had some of these, for a while, like sugar. It was first referenced it was invented and cultivated in India, and it was referenced in the religious text called Atharva Veda, and
Hmm.
that goes back 1200 to 1500 BC. But still, people never ate it in the volume that we're doing it.
No.
And then I said, in 1900, Hershey's came up with their very first candy bar,
Hmm.
and I thought, what a way to start a century, right?
Yeah, exactly.
and and then the seed oils came along, and they didn't exist until the late 1800s. They were used as machinery lubricant in the second industrial revolution in the United States. It's like,
Yeah.
what? And then these two guys from Europe came to Ohio, and they looked at a bucket of it, and they said, hey, it looks like lard. Why don't we sell it to people? They can use it to cook. And so they create this is William Procter and James Gamble, Procter and
Yeah, yeah,
Gamble,
yeah, yeah.
and they came up with this product called Crisco. And that started flying off the shelves in 1910. And then it's
Because it was heart healthy. You're not using lard or butter. It's good for your heart, right? Do you remember
oh
those
my God,
labels on
I
margarine, on
know.
everything? It was
And
heart
then
health.
90 years later, they discovered that Crisco has more trans fat in it than any other kind of cooking aid. And they also found that trans fat, this is in the 90s, is the worst fat you can put in your body because it causes double and triple trouble for your heart, for heart
Exactly.
disease.
Yeah.
But we didn't find this, and it's interesting that even though it started flying off the shelves in 1910, the um, the very first medically recorded heart attack was 1912.
What a
And then
coincidence.
cancer wasn't even like a thing, as they say,
Yeah.
until the 30s.
Yeah.
Now, heart disease and cancer is our biggest killer. See, in 1910, 1900, and prior, people died of infectious diseases, tuberculosis, influenza, pneumonia, that kind of thing. Once in a while, a gastrointestinal situation infection because we didn't have refrigeration, and sometimes we'd eat something nasty and we'd go out that way. But it's just so insane that it's become our biggest killer. Heart disease and cancer, and
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, and seed oils are one of the worst culprits. And when you mix like your unholy trinity, when you mix these three things together, which is found in all ultra processed foods, it's absolutely a heart attack, a disaster waiting to happen. And this is what most people are existing on now.
It's true, Lynn. It's just so sad. And what you and I are trying to do is wake people up to the fact that you got to read your labels, you got to know what you're looking at, and you just have to learn this because you're going to
You,
start catching these diseases of modernity that we never had
Mhm.
before the 20th century. And it's the amount of diabetes is just astounding.
Yeah.
And people start off and they have the hyperinsulinemia, and insulin resistance is the source root cause of so many diseases. That's why I think it's chapter 1, page 2. I start getting into, I say, look, you got to know the two most important fundamental factors in the processing of the food you put in your mouth, and that's glucose or blood sugar and insulin. You eat something and your blood glucose goes up. The pancreas senses that and secretes some insulin to keep it down in a safe range. And that's a normal process that goes on through life. But when you're eating the wrong food and too frequently, or both, your glucose is high and your insulin is high, and hour after hour, day after day, within 8 days, you develop what's called hyperinsulinemia, which is just a fancy sounding medical term for hyper, too much insulin. Emia means in the blood, too much insulin in the blood, hyperinsulinemia. And then very soon you have insulin resistance, which is where the cells are. The cells need insulin, but they come because of the overload, they come to reject or resist the too much insulin, right? And it's like, oh, you can't, it's like a suitcase that's you can't get anything else into it. You're trying
Yeah.
to sit on it. You no, we're full. We go
We're
away,
done.
right? And that very quickly leads to prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and which is such a shame because what's really a scandalous statistic, which I should share with you and your audience, is that, and this is out of Johns Hopkins just a few years ago, they did a big survey and they found that 74% of doctors, now we're talking about, let's see, general practitioners, family physicians, internists, and cardiologists. 74% of them do not know how to properly diagnose and test for prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
How is
That's
that
our
even
biggest.
possible?
How is it even possible? We'll see what happens is most doctors they'll check fasting blood glucose when you get your blood labs and A1C. And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you in a year. You're good. No, even the American Diabetes Association, who I wouldn't trust as far as I can throw them,
Yeah.
even they say, hey, you're going to miss a lot of people if you just test those two. They don't do this other one called the oral glucose tolerance test, OGTT with insulin, because that will detect if you've got prediabetes or if you're normal or if you're full blown type 2. I mean, that was me. I was a raging type 2 diabetic and I didn't know it.
And you didn't
And
know.
it wasn't because I was sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and Coca Cola. It was because I was totally sold on the propaganda and the BS of, air quotes, heart healthy whole grains.
Oh God.
I didn't know that these whole grains, they turn into sugar when they
Of
go into
course.
your body. And so I was a raging type 2 diabetic. And that's what was the root cause of my cardiovascular disease, my NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Oh, you had
And
that too. Wow.
I had that too because you see, I would start each morning with a bowl of granola,
Yeah.
which had to have at least 60 or 70 carbs right there, right? And it had some high fructose corn syrup, and the high fructose corn syrup is the real culprit in all this. And they put it in everything
Yes.
because it's just so much cheaper than real sugar and that kind of thing. But anyway, so I developed that and osteoporosis. I have a chapter on that too. And this afflicts the ladies more than the guys. But in the very first study that I cover in chapter 13 on bone issues, osteoporosis, osteopenia, they're talking about how these bone issues are coming in to younger and younger people. They did the study, it was between 35 and 50-year olds, and they were finding all of these bone issues, osteopenia, osteoporosis, and it was because of the introduction of the SAD, standard American diet, with all the carbs, the sugar, and the oils. And it really helps destroy your bones. And so, anyway, it's just those are my four comorbidities there.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue that I have with medical testing is that the medical establishment doesn't have a solution. So, okay, you're diagnosed with diabetes, here's your medication, here's your insulin. Oh, and you can still have like 150 grams of carbs a day. That's still good, Make sure you're eating whole grains. So they don't have the solution. So even when we get diagnosed with all kinds of different health issues, the solution is always medication, which is going to cause further issues. It's never about lifestyle changes. It's never about, for example, just going back to quantum biology for a second, and to diabetes and high blood sugar and everything. So at night, when your body is exposed to blue light, even if you're on a carnivore diet, your blood sugar will be as high as a diabetic's because of the
Wow.
because of
I
the
didn't
light
know that.
environment. Yeah, this is mind blowing. So the light environment is so important, and this is also something. So the doctor will never tell you about your environment, how many hours you're sleeping. Are you staring at your blue screen instead of sleeping at night? Are you eating any protein, having any meat? And they're still going to tell you whole grains, lots of vegetables, lots of fruit. I mean, even fruit, if someone's diabetic, you need to be really careful with the fruit because it's a lot of sugar, right? But they will never
Yeah,
tell you that.
especially certain fruits are just way high up there.
Of
And if
course.
you're going to choose one, choose a berry because those are the
Exactly.
lowest
The low carb one. Like a banana
glycemic.
is 24 grams carbs. I'll have a piece of cake, thank you. I'll enjoy a slice of cake a lot more
Well,
than a
no,
banana.
thank God we have your channel and my book. People can find out. In fact,
Yeah.
they can go to, I have up on my website, it's danieltrevor.com. And by the way, I don't have any vitamins or powders or anything like that or t-shirts. I mean, I don't mind if people do that. It's just that I'm not trying to sell anything. I
Yeah.
just want to help people. my purpose is to make America healthy again and the world too, right?
Yeah.
To let people know we've been lied to. So
Yeah.
anyway, at danieltrevor.com, if you get on my mailing list, I send out a newsletter once a week. I send out a free preview of the book. And I don't know any other authors that do
No.
that. And
No.
what it is you get a PDF of the first 48 pages. And
Okay.
because I'm big on, you want to taste it a little bit, and then you can buy it if you want.
Yeah.
And then also on my website, I have these blood labs that you can either order there or write them down and take them to your doctor and say, Doc, I want to get this one. And I explain what they are and how they work and why they're important and why you need to know these things,
Yeah.
and insist that your doctor get them for you through your insurance or however you order them. Of course, you can, the mailing list, anybody in the world can sign up there because I have people, followers all over the planet.
Mhm.
But the ordering of the different, like the oral glucose tolerance test and these inflammation markers and so forth, that's, I made a deal with Quest Diagnostics in the United States. They're the largest.
Mhm.
They have thousands of locations all over the United States. But you have, if you're outside the United States, just write them down and say, Doc, I want this. Get this for
Mhm.
me. And that way you'll know what to do, what to avoid, and if you're in trouble or you need something to fix. Because, like I said, if you're not testing when you get past a certain age, you're driving down the road without a steering wheel or a speedometer.
Yeah. And then your book will provide the solutions basically for, right? Because you give them the
I'm telling
solutions.
you. Well, look, heart disease is the biggest killer, and that includes strokes and amputations from the diabetic
Yeah.
neuropathy people get. I just found this out. This is a new one. It's every day there's 438 amputations in the United States. 430. They're chopping off their toes and their feet and everything, all because, and this is something that's avoidable because their doctors don't understand how to test for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And that's the way it starts, with the tingling in the hands and
Yeah.
the feet, and then it turns into pain. Well, you know about all that. But anyway, so it's just shocking what it's. But look, there is a saying that I think I have at the end of chapter 8 where a cured patient is a lost customer.
Exactly.
Now, that is a business model for some.
Yes.
We don't want any cures. In fact, I quote this one, Goldman Sachs, which is this big international banker, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had one of their analysts do a white paper,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't remember the name of it, but it was about creating cures is not good for the bottom line and profits. And the example they gave was, it was this big pharma company called Gilead Sciences, and they came up with this blockbuster drug called Harvoni, which had a
Mm-hmm.
96 to 99% cure rate for hepatitis C.
Mm-hmm.
And when it first came out, it was like $12 billion or something. And then within a couple of years, it was down 75%, and it continued its descent. And then Goldman Sachs yelled at them and said, look, you don't want to create cures. What they would rather have had them do was create a pill that the patient could take once a day, every day for the rest of their life, or an infusion or injection once a week or once a month. We don't want cures around here. What are we talking about?
No, we want
So
lifelong customers like with statins.
exactly. It's just so sad. And,
But
now
why
I'm
why
sure
is it
there's,
that people don't realize this? Like, they see someone in a lab coat, in the white coat, they see Doctor MD, and they're like, yes, yes, sir, whatever you say, and they just don't even question anything. Like, how did we get to this point where people just take everything at face value? They are totally brainwashed. Oh yeah, you need another 5 medications for the side effect of that medication. And they're like, yes, yes, sir. And they just take everything. Same with
uh,
surgeries. I mean, so many surgeries are unnecessary.
I don't know, white coat blindness. I,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know
They
what it
see, people
is.
see the white coat and they go, okay, knows all, sees all. And I
And
like
there's
what
so
Dr.
there's so
Ken
much
Beck,
information out there. Like ignorance is not an excuse anymore with the internet. I mean, there's so many people speaking the truth like you are, and so it's just a matter of finding the information and processing it and believing it and changing your life. And then you don't even need the doctors after that.
I'm telling you, it's all comes down to your diet and exercise and movement and, all those kind of things. But look, I was discussing this with Dr. Ken Berry when I was on with him, and he was saying, hey, look, doctors are just dudes and chicks in white jackets.
Yeah.
dudes and chicks in white coats, and they have, all their, humanoid frailties and that kind of thing, and they got their biases, and they have a huge hole in their medical education because all get from a doctor, a medical doctor, usually, not all of them. We're There's things turning around now, is you'll get just drugs and procedures and more drugs and more procedures, which
Yeah,
lead to more drugs and more procedures, right? It's
exactly.
like big food creates these products that have ingredients. I mean, they're sitting in their conference rooms. They have biochemical geniuses in their conference rooms around the world, figuring, okay, so what can we put in our products that will make them eat the whole bag instead of half the bag?
Exactly.
It's more bottom line and profits as opposed to what's good for human beings. And the big food, you eat that, all the packaged stuff, and that leads you to big medicine. And then big medicine leads you to big pharma, and then around and around we
Exactly. And
go.
it's in the end, it's all owned by the same people. So, exactly. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they just want
I
like
try
more
not to get.
customers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's wild. So
Yeah. So what's your take on
anyway,
exercise? What do you think is the best type of exercise for heart
well,
health, for general health?
I think we like to do exercise because we always moved. Now, we didn't have treadmills and gyms and all that kind of stuff. I mean, but life was hard. We had to move things. We had to, hunting was very rigorous and that kind of thing. And we sprinted a lot. We didn't do any, it was interesting. I was at the gym yesterday. I was talking to this guy. He had just spent a half hour on the treadmill. And I said, do you enjoy, he's a gym buddy. I know him and
Yeah.
they don't know what I do or anything. I said, do you enjoy that? He says, not especially. And then I was explaining to him, I said, well, it's very ancestrally inconsistent. We sprinted, but whoever went for a jog for a half hour in the jungle or the woods, they would have thought that hey, Uncle Throgmagog, he's gone crazy. He ate one of those crazy mushrooms again and he's off. It
For
just didn't
sure.
happen. We sprinted when we were chasing after animals or being chased, right?
Mhm. Yes.
But we never jogged. Jogging was never like a thing. And we always want to, like you understand, we want to reflect, how did these bodies that have been around for millions of years, how did they evolve? What did they used to? Because we can't behave and take this information from the vested interest of how we should eat, how we should behave, and that kind of thing. It's just, we have to live ancestrally.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree completely. And what do you think about lifting weights?
Chapter 9.
Chapter
I
nine.
have a
How do you
There's a
know the
big
whole book by heart? That's what blows my mind.
Well, I tell you what, I explain this sometimes to the guys in the gym because they're all over 40. There was a big study. I can't remember how many tens of thousands of people. I can't remember the details, but chapter 9, and they wanted to do this study to find out which exercise is better for people over 40. Is it cardio and aerobics or is it resistance training?
Yes.
And they measured it against all of the major metabolic markers like HDL, A1C, all these,
Mhm.
and I even have in chapter 9 the graph that they give in this study,
Mhm.
because I have a lot of graphs and images and pictures and that kind of thing in the book, because I'd like to make it easier for the reader to understand what's going on
Yeah.
and not make it so nebulous. So anyway, there's this graph and it shows black bars and white bars, and the black bars represent the amount of improvement for those over 40 doing resistance training, meaning with the free weights and the machines, and the white bars would represent those over 40 doing cardio and aerobics. And the white bars were like, you can't even basically see them. They're so
Yeah.
tiny.
Yeah.
But the huge benefits were from the resistance training. And the reason for that, Lynn, which I cover in a couple of pages later, there's this thing that scientists call muscle glucose uptake, which I'm sure you may have heard of that or come across. Muscle glucose uptake. What is that? That is where, when you're doing a curl or you're on the calf machine or you're pushing a weight or whatever that resistance training you're doing, you are pulling glucose out of the blood, where it can do a lot of damage, and into the muscle where it can be used as energy. I mean, it's beautiful.
Mhm.
Out of the blood, which is where it causes all the trouble and all the inflammation and cardiovascular disease, and into the muscles, which cause energy. And if you look at a graph of people from, let's see, bottom left to top right, this is in our teens down here. Naturally, as we age, get in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we get more pre-diabetic and diabetic. Our blood glucose goes up and our insulin resistance goes up, and it's just natural like that. So over 40, you want to pull all of that out of your bloodstream and, pull it into the muscles. That's why resistance training is so much superior to
Yeah.
aerobics for people over 40.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Especially for women too, it's very important.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, what would you like if somebody came to you and said, okay, where do I start? There's all this information, all this misinformation. What would be the most important thing for me to do to make my life healthier?
Well, again, the way I wrote the book was that if you're coming to this subject new, right?
Yeah.
And the very first second page of chapter one, I get into glucose and insulin because you have
Yes.
to know that because if you're eating foods that are shooting your glucose up, it's a stimulus response pattern where your insulin is going to be up. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. You can't be putting on weight and fat unless you have high insulin,
Hmm.
right? So you want to, if it's really important to you, you want to wear a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, because you hook it up to your phone, you wear it on the back of your arm or your stomach area, and you eat some. I did it for a couple of weeks just to test different foods, right?
Yeah.
So when you eat something and your phone says rings a bell or whatever, however you set it up, it shows that it shot your glucose way up. You know that your insulin also went up.
Yes.
So you want to avoid that. You look back on your meal and it's going to be a carbohydrate or a sugar or something like that. And that's what you want to either reduce the portion of or eliminate it totally. You have to find out what are the things that are raising my blood glucose, which will also raise my insulin, which is the fat storage hormone. And
Yes.
before you know it, you got a belly, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where all the diseases start. See, having some degree of a diabetic physiology, meaning if you have hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance, that's the source root cause. And this is the very first chart in the book. I think it's page 3 of your heart attacks, strokes, certain cancers, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, right? Alzheimer's. There's so many diseases that come from because of the inflammation that gets going in your arteries. And your arteries, as you know, go through the whole entire body. And that will restimulate all of these things you've got going on in your genetics. But listen, again, they say genetics loads the gun, but it's your lifestyle that pulls the trigger or keeps the safety on. So you
Absolutely.
have to understand what the foods you are eating are doing internally. And you only get that by testing, or you do the oral glucose tolerance test, as well as some others, or you wear a CGM, even for a short time, like I did. So, okay, so let me see what happens when I eat some rice, and
Yeah.
and then you see what's going on, and then you really understand I can't eat this,
Hmm.
especially if you've had an event like me. I almost died, and I want to see my grandkids grow up, and
Of course.
I have a lot to do, and I want to impart this message to so many others so that they can avoid what I went through.
How's your life different today compared to before your heart attack?
Oh, well, it's a lot better. I'll tell you, the reason why I should have had my heart attack in my 40s, because it runs in my big time, in my family, big time, right? But the reason why I pushed it off, I figured this out with what I had just told you about the muscle glucose uptake. I always managed to make it to the gym.
Hmm.
So just doing that, even though I was eating, the whole grains and all the BS that I would hear on the news, one week this is good, next week that's bad. I didn't know anything about anything, right? It's so much better now. I just keep a track of my labs I don't know, every 3 months I'll get my labs done because they're easy to do. I order them myself. I don't need a doctor because I can
Yeah.
read them all myself. I know exactly what's going on. And because again, any engineer will tell you you can't manage what you don't measure.
Hmm.
You got to measure.
Hmm.
Whether you wear in a CGM or you get occasional blood tests and blood labs. And again, the ones I recommend are up on. well, chapter 22, Dr. Ford Brewer wrote my chapter 22, and he goes through a lot there. There's a lot of testing. So I was really fortunate to get him. And fortunate because I didn't, at the time, like I said, I didn't know that if I had anything good. And then I started getting all of these amazing endorsements.
Yeah, I've seen
It's just
them. I
like,
mean, I'm very impressed. That's amazing.
I was impressed too. Are you kidding me? I mean, I was just, cardiologists, and I even have the winner of the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his discovery of nitric oxide. I mean, what are
Wow.
you kidding me? Little Daniel
Amazing.
Trevor, the lower class street kid from Philly. It's like,
Amazing. Well done, you.
anyways. So anyway, life is much better because I found the proper human diet
Yeah.
and
Do
that kind
you,
of thing.
how do you have more energy? Are you sleeping better? What have you
Oh,
noticed
sure.
since then?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, everything you can imagine is a lot better. It's just it's just again, we don't know. See, what happened was in the mid 80s. This is important to say too. Tobacco was going down because people were listening to the Surgeon General, the warnings about tobacco, and it can, cause cancer and this and that and the other. So the big tobacco companies, they saw their statistics going down, and they looked around and they said, okay, so let's do something different here. So they bought the big food companies. They bought Kraft, they bought Nabisco, General Foods, and they brought their addiction scientists from big tobacco over to big food. And when I say addiction scientists, I'm not talking about addiction scientists to get you unaddicted.
Yeah.
It's to, okay, so what can what put in these ingredients that makes them eat more of the packaged food that you find in the aisles in the supermarket? It's just
But people will
insane.
say, how can this be legal? How can this be allowed?
It's called corruption.
And do you know
Not,
that so
I think
many
it
of the
was,
chemicals that are used in the US are not allowed in the food in Europe? Food
it's
chemicals,
true.
additives, like the same you would take a box of cereal or can of pop or whatever, and it'll have a completely different ingredient list in the US from Europe. So you
It's
guys are
so
being
true.
double poisoned. I mean, we're
I
being
know.
poisoned
Look,
here, but you guys
it's
are
the
getting
big.
the double whammy. So how is this allowed to happen?
Well, it's corruption. Here's the thing. Even Dr. Marty McCary, who I was quoting earlier, he says we're going to change the food pyramid and the U.S. dietary guidelines. In the last 40 years, all of the FDA commissioners had this cozy relationship with big food and the FDA
Yeah.
and big food, and they would get in bed with them, and then when they would leave the government, they'd go get a cushy, high-paying job at big food, and it was round and around. Then they go back into government, and they had this. It's just so much corruption, and that's why. See, when I was watching RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearings in Congress, and he was saying something like he has sued the government and certain big food companies over the years,
Mhm.
right? And he says, when you do that, you get a PhD in corruption and what's going on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And so he shared that with Dr. McCary and the whole team and everything. And that's why everything is changing now. We're getting rid of that stupid food pyramid, which caused my heart attack because
Yeah.
I was told, the bottom of the pyramid has all these grains that you're
Yeah.
supposed to eat. Bread, pasta, cereal, biscuits, waffles, pancakes, tortillas, pizza crust. And it's crazy. And we never had any of these until about 9,000 years ago. And that's like a snap of the finger in the eons of time. See, anthropologists and bioarchaeologists, they tell us that we became the apex predator and we were eating meat. Our diet consisted of what we could catch, kill, and eat for 2.5 to 4.6 million years. I think it's a lot longer, but I'll take that.
Mhm.
2.6 to 4.5. And so when you say that, oh, well, that was 9 or 10,000 years ago, no, what they found was that I have a picture. I have in chapter 10, it's called Are You a Wheat Addict? I'll tell you about that. I have a picture of a guy. Well, it's his skull, and he's got perfect teeth. It's from 100,000 years ago. And I asked, do you think he had an orthodontist? He flossed 3 times a day? When they started exhuming bodies from after 9 or 10,000 years ago towards the present, they started noticing missing teeth, tooth decay, all these new diseases that were coming in, not as bad as the last
Yeah.
century, the 20th century.
Smaller jaw, everything.
Everything. Yeah, the bone diameter and length got smaller. Men shrunk 5 inches, women shrunk 3 inches. It was a disaster.
Mhm.
And that's where all of these things, and see what they figured out was the clever humans would find out. And I learned this from Dr. William Davis, who's, Wheat
Yeah.
Belly and
Yeah, yeah, I
Super
love
Gut and all
him.
that. And he was his research showed that these clever humans would see the animals eating the grass and the wheat and all that kind of thing, but they couldn't, because see, we're monogastric, we have one stomach,
Yeah.
whereas cows and other ruminants have multiple stomachs where they can digest that kind of thing. And so what they would do is they grind up the seeds and they heat it up in a little water, and they could make a porridge that they could eat once that allowed them to survive an extra day or week or month, but their health took a serious toll. But what I'm getting to with regard to the addiction of the wheat and grain products is in the late 60s, early 70s. And again, this is all in chapter. They had Big Ag came along and they started this thing called chemical mutagenesis and radiation mutagenesis. And what does that do? That amps up this thing called gliadin, gliadin, gliadin. And what does that do? Well, it attaches to the opiate receptors of your brain. Now, it doesn't get you high or relieve pain, but what its expression is to make you crave more of the things that have wheat and grains in them, like your bread, your pasta, your cereal, crackers. And when Big Food discovered that, check out this stat. The average supermarket has 60,000 products, right? Average supermarket. 59,000 contain wheat or some form of wheat. And you got to watch out for they have some aliases that I have all that in chapter 10 too. There's
Yeah.
maybe 10 of them or something, but they are really coming after our opiate receptors, the Big
Yeah.
Food. That's why they put it in everything. So you got to avoid the wheat and the grains. And that's one of the hardest things for me to do. So that's why, you have to thank God YouTube is a treasure trove of all these substitute things you can eat to get rid of the grains. Let's say if you're addicted to pizza, you can make an almond flour pizza. I
Absolutely.
mean, until you can make your full transition to total wheat and grain elimination. And when you do that, oh my God, once you arrive there, the clarity of thinking, you no longer you can confront anything no matter what is put in front of you. It's just amazing the freedom that you once attained.
Absolutely. Yeah, your whole world changes. Daniel, I'm going to go and
Really?
order your book right now on Amazon. Hopefully,
Wow.
it's available
Okay.
on I've got Spanish Amazon. That's the closest one. They don't deliver to Gibraltar, but in Spain, I'm sure I can find
Oh,
it. Please tell our audience one more time where they can find more information about you, your website, and everything. And I will
yeah,
also
just
link everything below.
sure. It's danieltrevor.com. And again, I have a lot of information there. I got a lot of videos that people could see. I have a page that's a video podcast. You can watch me with all the people that the Ken Berries and the
I'm
Dr.
so
Ovadias, and
jealous.
yeah, so all that. And I have all those. Plus, I have a page that covers the blood test. So there's a lot of information there. But get on the mailing list, because once a week, I don't bombard people, but once a week, once every Friday or Saturday, I'll send out a newsletter that's based on information in the book, but it's bite size,
Mhm.
right? And that kind of thing. So get on the mailing list. You get the free PDF of the book, the first 48 pages. And all I say to people is, look, just read the introduction and you'll know right away if you're interested in seeing more. But I cover a lot of information. But anyway, yeah, to danieltrevor.com. Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate you
Thank
having
you
me
so
on.
much,
And
Daniel. It was an
and
absolute pleasure.
I love what you're doing. Keep it
Thank you so
going.
much. I love what you're doing as well. So you keep going as well. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.